So this video is more or less just opinion and rumors, so take it with a grain of salt. At first, this video was going to be about the rumors of Nintendo backing off of making a cinematic universe with all their IPs, but developed into a rant about one particular man and his role in the Legend of Zelda movie. I will still cover some of those rumors, and I will admit this is out of my wheelhouse a bit, but I just felt like ranting after recent events that have ties to the Zelda movie. With that out of the way, let's get to it. Kraven the Hunter premiered, and it was such a disaster that Sony finally decided to put a stop to the Spider Man adjacent villain universe. They started off decent with the Venom movie, but personally, I was not a fan. And in general, when it comes to movies made by Sony, I tend to stay away. I do that for most movies nowadays. The only movies I tend to watch are video game movies, and that's for content. I will admit I'm not good at vocalizing how I feel about a movie and what I think is bad or good about it. I also tend not to look too deeply into what I'm watching. This is mainly to avoid adding meaning where none is, which we get plenty of from people who say people like me are media literate. Never mind that was hammered into kids in my generation with the books we were required to read. The commentary of the Fallout games comes to mind after the Amazon TV show came out. The question is, what does this have to do with the Nintendo Cinematic Universe? Well, there are a few rumors going about that Nintendo does not really care about the success of the Pokemon and Mario movies, and we're not impressed with the money they made from the movies. It was just a drop in the bucket in comparison to what they make on their games. There's also pressure for them to alter the characters to meet the current state of Hollywood, with evidence of meddling in the Mario movie, and again, another rumor of people trying to make Zelda the main character in the Legend of Zelda movie. I would think that Nintendo doesn't want some random Westerner with a chip on their shoulders and some virtuous point they would like to make altering their characters to the detriment of the IP. Let's look at the Super Mario Bros. Movie that came out in 2023. Let's face it, the success of Super Mario Bros. Movie was a fluke, releasing at a point in time where movies were just not doing well. In addition to that, most video game adaptations are terrible. Lest we forget about Netflix's Resident Evil series, Welcome to Raccoon City, every Resident Evil movie with Mila Jovovich, which Sony was involved with, Five Nights at Freddy's, Monster Hunter, all three Tomb Raider movies, the Donkey Kong Country TV show, Double Dragon, including the 1990s cartoon, Street Fighter, the Mortal Kombat movies, although the first one holds a bit of nostalgia for me, and there are more, which it would be remiss of me not to mention the movie that started it all, the live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie. Before anyone jumps down my throat, many of those have been successful financially, or have had iterations that have been successful. But I would compare their success of some of those IPs to that of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. Sure, it made money, but it still sucked, to the point that the movie or shows were canceled and or rebooted. Based off of that list, Capcom seems all too eager to sell their own IPs to whomever, with some of the most notable video game adaptations turning into abominations. One link you may have noticed is Sony. Like I mentioned, their recent attempt at a cinematic universe failed miserably. I have not seen any of Sony's Spider-Man adjacent movies, and I have no opinion on them. But I have seen their box office numbers and people's reaction to them. One person of note is tied to those movies. Well, there's more than one, but I only care about this one individual in particular. That being this man, Avi Arad. I made a video previously regarding good old Avi when they announced the partnership with Sony to make a live action The Legend of Zelda movie. I cannot reiterate how much of a dumb decision this is on Nintendo's part, by the way. By that I mean making the movie live action and partnering with Sony. After all, Sony is a direct competitor in the gaming industry. I know someone might say a rising tide raises all ships, but when your ship is the Titanic in the shape of a bucket filled with crabs, it's just asinine. Although Nintendo is footing 50% of the bill and Shigeru Miyamoto is a producer, I personally would not trust a competitor with one of my most beloved and profitable IPs. I suspect when this agreement was made, they treated it like an employee review and only made an evaluation based off of the last few weeks and not the whole year, with Spider Man Into the Spider Verse being successful and maybe leveraging other successes like Iron Man. After all, it started a very lucrative cinematic universe up to Endgame. There's a huge difference between starting and maintaining a cinematic universe, though. But it feels like they were counting the hits and ignoring the misses. There are a whole slew of comic book movies from the 2000s and even Uncharted at the time, and he was involved with the Borderlands movie. And that was a shit show to say the least. The misses greatly outnumber the hits, and the hits don't make up for the misses, in my opinion. Amongst those are some movies that were successful, like the X-Men movies. Yes, they made money, but they are bad. X-Men Last Stand is a testament to how bad they were. I would venture a guess Avi is part of why we never got comic book accurate costumes for the X-Men, but that is just a guess and I don't feel like digging in to find out. Some of these movies were products of their time and were the best comic book movies then, but even then they were not great and have aged like milk in Death Valley. For fun, let's have a look at the director for the Legend of Zelda movie, Wes Ball. For those who do not know, he was the director behind the 3 Maze Runner movies, with all 3 movies being financially successful. But there was definitely a decline on return for each one. His 4th movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, made $398 million on a budget of $160 million. With marketing costs and technically being a Disney production through Fox, the budget is probably more than what they stated. I would say this movie more than likely lost money. But the thing that got my attention was an interview where Wes said the movie has to be a little more grounded and real, considering this was in reference to using mocap, but raises some red flags considering the high fantasy setting of the Legend of Zelda games. Then there is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Yes, it was very successful, but if you pay even a bit of attention, it's not that good of a movie, with the IP and the animation doing the heavy lifting. The story was not good, and personally, it should never have been an origin story. I even made a series of videos going over the movie. It's outside of my wheelhouse again. Well, I guess just putting anything on YouTube seems to be. But I gave it my best college try. But Nintendo and Universal are moving forward with a sequel that was announced during Nintendo Direct in March of 2024, with a release date in April of 2026. I wrote the script for this before Sonic 3 came out, but in hindsight, it was probably better that circumstances kept me from recording, editing, and producing the video. I was not sure where to put this in my ramble, but here will suffice. I'm sure due to timing, someone might have pointed out the success of the Sonic movies. After all, they already announced a 4th movie. If any one of them just so happened to be on TV, I would watch them. Otherwise, they're not that great. But it did remind me we almost did not get the Sonic we have on the big screen today. But that atrocity that was changed due to pure outrage, and I would hope any Nintendo IP would get the same treatment. If there's any validity to the rumors, along with the history of video game movies not doing all that great, I get why Nintendo would put on the brakes in regards to a cinematic universe. In regards to the Zelda movie, I would be looking at the agreement that was made and ways to get out of it, with another rumor that the movie is possibly being delayed till after 2030. Maybe Nintendo is going for a force majeure or a fusion of time? I don't know. At the very least, I would get Avi out of the picture or just give him a window seat, let him put his name on the credits. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.